Hello, welcome to Gwent. Let's have a talk about Weather, how strong it is, what are the synergies, how to counter it, other counters are fine, and is Weather fine how it works right now. So let's just get started, but before we get started, we need to realize that these cards deal damage every turn, and they need to be compared to some other cards, so we should establish the value of bronzes, silvers, and gold cards. I would say in general they have the value of like, at least the base value of like 9, 12, 15-ish. But the better ones tend to have a lot more, like up to 12. So the bronzes are more like 9 to 12, and the silvers are more like 12 to 15, and the golds are like 15 plus. Like the best golds are just like pretty strong. So let's just say we expect like roughly like 10 power from this impenetrable fog, and let's just ignore for the fact that it can hit the same units, the highest units, and we're just like hitting one unit with it. Like it has 10 strength, and in that case, impenetrable fog takes 5 turns to do 10 damage. That's not so bad, because the game actually has 14 turns. You start with 10 cards, plus your leader ability, plus you draw 3 cards in the following turns. So that's these 14. Also, Spies and like Avalok just like extends that to, like, I would say the average turns are more like 15. But it sometimes goes up to 17 or more. And actually, if you're playing a better deck, then making sure that the game lasts longer is better. However, this is just casting fog or like any weather effect from your hand, and we didn't consider the fact that if you're actually hitting 2 units at the same time, then it's only gonna, in like 3 turns, you're gonna get 12 value from it, and that's just crazy good. And after that, you still gonna keep generating value, and hitting 2 units at the same time is not that hard to pull off. And if you could compare it to other cards that generate value by their own in the turns, like for example Reinforced Trebuchet, we can ignore the machine synergy because like this unit can advance support or the pace for that. So we see that like this like generates 1 value every following turns. So in 5 turns it will be like a 10, and it is just straight up worse than Weather. However, Weather is even better because there are synergies with Weather. The most obvious and the easiest synergy is just straight up you just get some power on top of your Weather. So you get Earth's Adapt, you cast whatever weather you like, the bronze one, and you get 4 power on top of that. So in 3 turns, worst case scenario, in 3 turns you already got good value plus some deck thinning. That's actually an extra advantage, but let's just ignore that for now. Also, there are other cards like for the Foglets. They can be punished if the weather is removed. They actually go away. But they actually give you 6 power. Pretty strong cards. The strongest, one of the strongest ones, if they are not countered. But I believe the Hunt is just straight up better, because you get 5 power on top of a Biting Frost you play. And if we consider the Biting Frost like a 10, then this card is like a 15. It's like a 15. And that's just extremely strong. Extremely strong card for most definitely. And this is just, again, one example of a synergy. And also we have Spies, for example. Like, okay, let's just go with Frightener. Because Spies have extra synergy with Weather, because you can actually place them in the Weather. So, for example, you play the Vatent Hound, and you play a Frightener in the Weather, and you actually move in another unit, in the frost. So they actually keep taking 2 damage a turn, the Frightener plus the unit, and in 5 turns, the disadvantage of playing the Spy will be negated. So the Spies, for example, from Nilfgaard faction or from any faction, work really well with Weather. Well, let's just go back to Weather. Also, actually, we need to consider one more synergy, and it's the Axeman. Axeman is the most synergistic unit with Weather, because with Biting Frost, because we saw that like the Airtuza gets 4 power on top of the Weather, Vattenhound 5 power on top of Weather, but the Axeman actually gets a lot of power. He gains 1 power for every tick of Biting Frost, and that could really add up. We're talking about like 20 plus power in a long round. That most obviously takes the game. Unless he's like completely shut down, but he's only just 1 bronze card. So even if you're using a 1 bronze card to completely shut him down, you're just trading evenly. So there's no card that counters this card, like I can think of right now. Okay, let's just go back. Of course you can Mardrum it, for example, that works. But even like that, he is getting more out of it than you are getting by Mardrumming the guy. And in playing Biting Frost is gonna worth it. Of course, shutting down Biting Frost is the most ideal scenario, but can you really counter Weather? I think that's the most important question here. And what I mean by counter. Counter is something that you can play that leaves you in an advantageous position. Like, you actually gain something. You end up as a winner. So for example, your opponent plays a Biting Frost on 1 unit, and you play, let's say, Clear Sky. You play Clear Sky, you clear it up, and that's not a counter. That's not a counter, unfortunately, because you cleared up the Weather, but he actually got 1 value, and you didn't counter it whatsoever. A counter is something that leaves you with a point advantage. First Light could be a card that maybe you can play if your opponent just like Weathered everything, but unfortunately just Clear Sky just is not good enough. So what Weather counters are good enough? Well, that only leaves the single row Weather counters, if we can call them that. So for example, your opponent plays Airtu's Adept with a Fog, and let's just say the Fog only ticks once. So your opponent got 6 value, and you play the Griffin, and you get 1 value out of that. One extra advantage. That's not a lot. Not a lot for a card that you specifically included just to counter Weather. If you're playing this card in any other time, he's just 7. That is not. It's just very risky. But if you actually don't have a way to shut down Weather, then you're gonna get extremely punished. But if you're up against Weather, even best case scenario, you're not getting much out of it. You just have to have something to shut down Weather, but you're not getting much out of it. Even against the Weather decks, you're not getting much out of it, best case scenario. Because the thing is, if your opponent plays, for example, a Vattenhound, I'm not sure if I need to show it. So this has 5 strength, and let's say he plays Biting Frost on 2 of your units. And you counter with an Griffin. I'm using the Griffin as an example because it's the most straightforward one. They all have like roughly 7 value, but this has just 7 value. So it's the most straightforward counter. And if you play an Griffin, you're just breaking even. And he also thinned the deck. So yes, that's not really a counter. And if he plays the Vattenhound on 3 units, then that's not a counter. Our Griffin is not a counter anymore. You cannot play it and gain value. And actually, he can also navigate her out the Vatand Hound, gaining 8 value, 3 plus 5 plus Biting Frost. That leads to like 18 points of value, assuming. That's just like rough value, like average value. But let's just consider the fact that he played Navigator, Vatand Hound, let's just say he played Frost on 1 unit. Then he gained 9 value right away, and if you right away play R Griffin, that's not a counter. That's not a counter whatsoever. And you added this situational card into your deck that is gonna be pretty garbage because it's a 7 against non-Vetter decks. Of course, in this meta, like most decks are actually Vetter decks because just Vetter is just like that good. And we don't have a counter to that. I can just say that. Like, if your opponent plays a Biting Frost from hand, sure, you can most likely play a Vetter counter for value. But with the added advantages that you can just play the spies in it, they get killed, or like you get R2s on top of the Vetter, or you Vatand Hound, or you play Axeman. And if you can't shut down the Biting Frost of the Axeman or the Axeman, you're gonna lose that game, without a doubt. And there are some cards that you can somewhat counter, like Skellige Storm. Your opponent gets, let's say, maximum value, like 6 value. Then you play it on R Griffin, and you get 1 on top of that. And actually, because it was a silver card, let's just say like the silver card is like a 3 point more valuable than a bronze card. So you actually get like 4 on top of that, so to speak. So it's a marginal counter. Like R Griffin is a marginal counter to Skellige Storm. But when it comes to Bifrost, your opponent might just Bifrost, like let's say 4 units, gets 4 value out of it right away, and if you play a Clear Sky, then you actually gonna lose 4 points still. You get rid of the Biting Frost, but you still lost 4 points. And if you consider like silver 3 point higher than a bronze card, which I feel like it's very, very right, then it's not a counter. You cannot counter that. Clear Sky is truly only a counter to these whole board Vetters, maybe. But even like that, your opponent gets 6 value out of it, like right away, assuming that that is the case. I just say he gets 6 value out of it. And if your opponent plays a Clear Sky, then he actually like used up a 10-ish power bronze, because the bronze have 10-ish power, and you used up like a 15+-ish power gold. So, best case scenario, your opponent shuts it down right away, and that kind of works out for them. Like, at best case scenario, your opponent is like breaking even. That's not really a counter. Of course, Ragnarok could be pretty powerful if unanswered. And I feel like these Vetter counters are just not strong enough. They like, what should be a counter? Like, a counter should be like, your opponent plays something, and if you have the counter, then it should give you a point lead. Like, you counter your opponent. It puts you on top of that. Not that, hey, it really shouldn't be a best of a bad situation kind of deal. Not like your opponent hits you and like you put on a bandage and whimper away like, oh, that was my counter. That's not really a counter. That's what I would say. Like, some cards can be like, so to speak, countered like marginally. And I believe that could be an okay way to do it, because we still want these cards to be impactful. But, and actually this is another issue that needs to be touched on, that when these hit like the same units, like the units with the same strength, that just generates even more extra value. And that just like, I'm not a huge fan of this mechanic, that units. It makes Scorch extremely problematic, epidemics, like damage, like anything that hits units. It's just like, sometimes just like, hey, it's twice as good, or 3 times as good. And that could make like Scorch from a card that affects only like ridiculously buffed up units who like scorching down like 3/7 your opponents have for 21 value, and that's just like extremely powerful. And that's kind of the same deal with the Impenetrable Fog. For example, you can play it on like crones. You play it on crones, they take 2 damage first, then 8, then actually not 8, then 6, then 6 again, then 6 again. So a fog is perfectly capable of deleting the crones in 4 turns. 20 points in 4 turns. Of course they might play it light, but they might not play it late if they want the tempo. But with a fog, and if you don't have the counter to that, then you just need to pass. There's nothing to do about it. Like, you can easily just delete the crones in 4 turns with the fog. And that is really problematic. Because the synergies of the Weather are really strong, but the counters are really not there. And I really want the counters to be there. Like, you should get ahead by playing the counter, and I feel like that's not the case. So if I feel like Griffin, if you drop it in the Weather, it should get stronger. Like, some way, like, it should get stronger. And if it was like, hey, like, get stronger and be immune. I know it might be just and make the row immune to Weather, like, as long as it's alive. I know it might be just too strong, but currently Weather is just everywhere. Like, even Skellige is spamming it because it is an excellent combination with X-Men, for example. You can pay Biting Frost, and if it like affects like 3 units, then the X-Men is generating 3 value a turn. So, and if it's not shut down, it's just like it is gonna lose you the game every single time. So yeah, counters are just really not there, and I know that they are like trying to like change the Biting Frost, but and I like seeing that the Weather effects are impactful, but they're impactful because just the counters are not there, and you really don't want to put in like these 6-7 strength guys that are completely useless against Weather. But even against Weather, like even against Weather, I can just play, when I play Vault Hunt, I can just play Carantir, put everyone in the same row. Your opponent just like plays Griffin, save me. Then you play a Vault Hunt, Griffin again, save me. Then you play another Vault Hunt guy, Vault Hunt Hound, and ooh, he's out of answers. He's just gotta go for the clear sky. Now at that point, he's already completely screwed. So play another Vault Hunt Hound. Oh, what should I do? I'm gonna play the Water Hag, and he's gonna play another clear sky. He does that, and you play another Vault Hunt Hound, and he's like at this point, he's like already done like 20 points. You have also the Spy on his board that's getting murdered by the Weather, generating you extra value on top, and he's just like completely out of the game. There is no countering Weather. That's my takeaway. You can counter Weather, you can maybe slightly edge out against some Weather, but for the most part, at best, you can break even. And Weather is very impactful, so that's it. Weather is strong. I like seeing it strong, but I'm not sure it should be toned down, but the Weather counters really need to be very impactful. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.